Sometimes you don't realize the value of someone until the silence of their absence screams louder than their presence ever did. The shock of silence is always louder than the loudest argument, louder than the sharpest words that were ever exchanged. At first, she may not notice it. She might even welcome it, thinking the absence of constant conversations or check-ins is a form of freedom. But as days stretch into nights and nights stretch into lonely mornings, that silence begins to grow heavier. It isn't the ordinary silence of a quiet room. It is the kind of silence that echoes, that follows her wherever she goes. She picks up her phone instinctively, not even to call, but just to scroll through old conversations, trying to fill the void with the ghost of your words. She sees the empty chat box where your message bubble used to pop up, and suddenly her chest feels hollow. This silence is not peaceful. It is suffocating because it reminds her of what she once had and what she has lost. There are moments when the shock of silence hits unexpectedly. She could be sitting at a dinner table surrounded by people, yet one small gesture or a half-heard joke reminds her of the times she shared everything with you. She instinctively turns her head, almost ready to tell you something, only to realize you are no longer there. That pause, that millisecond of realization, cuts her deeper than any words ever could. The silence becomes a cruel companion that follows her into the most ordinary parts of her life. She hears it when she's about to share good news, when she needs comfort, when she faces a disappointment. Every time she looks for you and doesn't find you, the silence tightens its grip around her. The thing about silence is that it magnifies everything else. The ticking of a clock feels louder, the emptiness of a room feels wider, the loneliness in her own thoughts feels unbearable. Before, she might have complained about how much you talked, how often you asked, how much you checked in. Now she craves that same presence she once overlooked. She scrolls through her gallery late at night, staring at pictures where laughter was real, voices were alive, and time felt abundant. But as soon as she puts her phone down, the silence rushes back, surrounding her like a cold fog that refuses to lift. It's in those moments she realizes the comfort of having someone to talk to wasn't just about words. It was about knowing someone was truly there. This silence begins to seep into every area of her life. She goes to bed later than usual, not because she isn't tired, but because sleep means surrendering to thoughts she can't control. She wakes up earlier than usual, not because she's rested, but because the silence of mornings without your voice is heavier than the night. She fills her day with noise, music, television, conversations with others, but nothing cancels the quiet that reminds her of you. Even in noise, she feels the silence, because the space you once filled cannot be replaced by sound. It is not about the absence of voices, it is about the absence of the one voice that mattered the most. The shock of silence often arrives disguised as strength. She tells herself she is fine. She convinces the world she doesn't need anyone. She keeps smiling through the days. But behind that strength lies a constant battle with the quiet. She is haunted not by the things you said, but by the things you no longer say. She replays your last words. She imagines the conversations that will never happen again. She hears your laughter in her memories, but not in her reality. And this contrast between memory and present becomes the sharpest pain of all. Silence teaches her that absence is not just the lack of presence. It is the constant reminder of what once was and will never be again. Regret is never gentle. It doesn't arrive softly. It strikes suddenly and keeps striking over and over again until every part of her mind is consumed by it. At first, she doesn't recognize it for what it is. She tells herself that maybe it's just sadness, maybe it's just the natural ache of missing someone. But regret has a way of making itself known. It comes in flashes, in memories, in sharp reminders of the things she could have done differently. She sits alone, and scenes replay in her head like an endless film, each moment showing her exactly where she could have spoken softer, where she could have listened more, where she could have chosen patience over pride. She remembers the times you needed her to stand beside you, and she let her ego win instead. She remembers the moments you tried to tell her how you felt, and she brushed them aside as if time was limitless. Now, with every thought, the burn of regret grows hotter. It is not a steady pain. It comes in waves that knock her breath out of her chest. She could be doing something simple, pouring herself a cup of coffee, walking down the street, scrolling through her phone, and suddenly an ordinary thought drags her back to you. She remembers a careless word she spoke, a cold expression she gave, a moment where she could have shown love but instead chose distance. The realization is brutal because regret always shows her how easy it would have been to make a different choice and how those small choices could have changed everything. She tells herself, if only I had said it differently, if only I had tried harder, if only I had valued what I had, and those words become chains around her heart, tightening with every memory that resurfaces. What makes regret burn so deeply is that it doesn't just haunt the past, it poisons the present. She finds herself unable to fully enjoy the company of others because her mind is elsewhere, trapped in an endless loop of replays and rewrites. She imagines going back to that exact moment where she rolled her eyes at your words, where she hung up the phone too soon, where she chose silence instead of expressing what she truly felt. She imagines changing it, fixing it, holding on to you instead of pushing you away. But imagination can't rewrite reality, and that knowledge burns more than the regret itself. She holds on to these thoughts until they turn into questions she can't escape. Why did I let it go so far? Why did I act as though I had forever? Why didn't I just love better when I had the chance? Regret doesn't let her rest. It steals her nights, keeping her awake with conversations she now wishes she had. She lies in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the look on your face during your last arguments, the disappointment in your eyes when she didn't understand, the moments she could have reached out but chose silence instead. She whispers apologies into the dark, not because she expects anyone to hear, but because her heart cannot hold the weight of all the words left unsaid. And even in those whispered apologies, she knows they will never reach you, they will never undo the damage, they will never bring back what she lost. The fire of regret is cruel because it doesn't only remind her of her mistakes, it also highlights your worth. Every regret is a reflection of the love she failed to honor. Every memory that stings is a reminder that she had something rare, something real, and she let it slip through her fingers. She knows she cannot touch the past. She cannot undo the choices that led here, but that doesn't stop her from reliving them. Over and over again, she burns with the realization that she had everything and now she has nothing, not because it disappeared suddenly, but because she didn't value it when it was standing right in front of her. The comparison she cannot escape begins quietly, almost without her noticing. In the early days, she might convince herself that moving on will be simple, that replacing you with someone new will fill the emptiness she feels. She might even go out of her way to meet new people, to surround herself with fresh faces, to distract herself with conversations that are meant to feel exciting. But no matter how many people enter her life, no matter how many voices surround her, her mind cannot help but measure each one against you. It's not intentional, it's not even something she admits to herself at first, but it happens naturally because you left an imprint that cannot be erased. Every smile she sees, every word she hears, every gesture she experiences, her heart compares it to the way you smiled, the way you spoke, the way you moved through life. She could be standing in front of someone who is kind, who is attentive, who says all the right things, and yet there's a hollow feeling inside her. She listens, but she doesn't feel. She watches, but she doesn't connect. And deep inside, the comparison begins to whisper. She remembers how you used to look at her, and suddenly the eyes in front of her don't seem to carry the same depth. She remembers the way you would laugh at her jokes, and suddenly the laughter of someone new feels shallow. Even when she tries to silence these thoughts, they rise again, louder than ever, reminding her that what she once had is not something she can easily replace. This comparison begins to follow her everywhere. She sees a stranger in the street who wears the same cologne you once wore, and her heart skips a beat before sinking in disappointment. She hears a song on the radio that you once played, and every lyric reminds her of moments that no one else could ever replicate. She goes to familiar places, cafes, parks, streets, and even when she is with someone new, she feels the shadow of your presence lingering there. No matter how much she tries to push forward, the past keeps pulling her back through these invisible strings. And in those moments, the realization sinks deeper that she is not just comparing people, she is comparing lives. Her life with you versus her life without you. The harshest part of this comparison is that it makes her realize the standard you set without even trying. You didn't need to be perfect. You didn't need to do everything right, but you gave her a feeling that no one else has been able to give. The security of your presence, the way you understood her without needing many words, the way you cared in small details that others overlook. Those things have now become the benchmark she unconsciously measures everyone against, and no one reaches it. No matter how much someone tries, no matter how much she wants to feel the same way, the emptiness inside her grows louder with every failed attempt. She may even start resenting herself for these comparisons, asking why she cannot just let go, why she cannot simply appreciate the people around her without holding them up against you. But the truth is, she doesn't have control over it. You became the reference point, the measure of what love, comfort, and connection felt like. And though she might meet people who look good on paper, who treat her well, who offer stability, her heart betrays her with the silent reminder that none of it feels the same. The more she tries to run from these comparisons, the more they catch her off guard in moments of stillness, in moments when she least expects it. The comparison she cannot escape becomes the quiet torment of her days. She hides it behind a smile, she carries it in silence. But deep down, she knows that no matter how many people walk into her life, her heart will keep searching for the reflection of what she once had with you. And every time it fails to find it, the emptiness grows heavier. The loneliness in crowds is the kind of ache that is almost impossible to explain, because from the outside, everything appears fine. She might be standing in a room full of people, surrounded by laughter, conversation, and movement, yet inside she feels completely disconnected. The noise around her doesn't reach her heart. The faces she sees don't comfort her soul. She smiles, she nods, she plays the role of someone who is enjoying herself, but there's a hollowness in her chest that no one else notices. This is the kind of loneliness that is not caused by physical isolation, but by emotional absence. And it is this form of loneliness that cuts her the deepest, because it reminds her that even in a sea of people, she still feels like she is standing entirely alone. There are moments when she tries to convince herself that social gatherings, busy places, and the company of friends will make her feel better. She dresses up, she walks into rooms filled with light and music. She tells herself that being surrounded by energy will drown out the emptiness. But no matter how much noise fills her ears, the silence inside her heart echoes louder. While others are engaged, carefree, and laughing, she feels like an outsider looking in, present physically but absent emotionally. She goes through the motions. She claps when others clap. She laughs when others laugh. She nods when others talk. But deep inside, she knows she is only acting. And when the night ends and the lights fade, the loneliness feels even heavier than before because pretending only deepens the emptiness when the mask comes off. The loneliness in crowds often strikes her most during moments of joy. She could be watching friends share stories, couples holding hands, families laughing together, and that's when the ache intensifies. Not because she resents them, but because those scenes remind her of what she no longer has. She sees reflections of her past in those moments, how she once had someone she could lean on, how she once had a presence that made her feel complete. Now, standing in a crowd, she realizes that what she craves cannot be replaced by numbers, cannot be filled by activity, cannot be masked by distractions. It is the absence of one person that makes the presence of everyone else feel meaningless. This type of loneliness also follows her home after the gatherings end. She could be surrounded for hours, but when she steps into her room, the silence feels heavier because the contrast is so sharp. Hours of pretending, hours of social noise, hours of hiding what she truly feels, all collapse into a single moment of truth when she is left alone with her thoughts again. She sits on her bed, staring at the ceiling, remembering how even the simplest of times with you felt more alive than the busiest of nights without you. The loneliness doesn't only appear when she is by herself. It travels with her, it lingers in her chest, it shows up in her eyes, even when she is surrounded by people. What makes the loneliness in crowds so painful is that it cannot be explained to others without sounding ungrateful. People look at her and say she has company, she has friends, she has people who care. They remind her she is not truly alone. But what they don't understand is that loneliness is not about numbers, it's about connection. And the connection she once had with you was not something that could be replaced by more people. It was deep, it was rare, it was hers. Without it, every interaction feels shallow, every gathering feels temporary, every conversation feels incomplete. She carries this loneliness quietly, smiling to hide it, engaging to cover it, but always feeling the weight of knowing that in every crowd she enters, she is still looking for the one face that would make her feel like she belonged, and it is never there. The weight of what ifs is one of the heaviest burdens she carries, because unlike memories that simply replay the past, what ifs imagine the future that could have been. They torment her with the pictures of alternate realities, versions of her life where she made different choices, spoke different words, held on instead of letting go. The what-ifs creep into her mind when she least expects them, turning ordinary moments into painful reminders of everything she lost. She might be walking down the street and suddenly wonder what it would have felt like to walk beside you again. She might hear a song and wonder what it would have been like if you had still been there to share the moment. Every detail of her present becomes tangled with the shadows of a future that will never happen, and those shadows press down on her until she feels crushed by their weight. The hardest part about these what-ifs is their simplicity. They are not grand, complicated scenarios. They are small, intimate moments she wishes she had chosen differently. She asks herself why she didn't listen longer that night you were trying to explain yourself. She asks why she hung up the phone instead of softening her tone. She asks why she walked away in anger instead of pausing to understand. These questions repeat endlessly in her mind, and though she knows she cannot change the past, her heart still tortures her with the endless possibilities of what could have been. It is as if her mind refuses to accept the finality of loss and keeps showing her doors that she never opened, paths she never took, choices she never made. These what-ifs become most powerful in her quietest moments. When she lies awake at night, Staring at the ceiling in the stillness, her mind begins weaving stories that never came to life. She imagines what it would feel like if you were still there, if she had fought harder, if she had held you closer. She envisions a life where she made different decisions, and that imagined life feels so vivid, so real, that waking up to reality feels like a punishment. The contrast between what she imagines and what she lives tears her apart. She is haunted not only by the mistakes she made, but also by the possibilities she destroyed. The what-ifs don't let her move forward easily either. Even when someone new enters her life, she cannot fully embrace them because her heart is busy living in the parallel world her mind has created. She wonders how things might have been if she had chosen differently, and in that wondering, she robs herself of peace in the present. Every smile she receives is compared to the smile she remembers. Every word spoken to her is weighed against the words she imagines she could still be hearing. The burden of what-ifs doesn't just keep her chained to the past, it prevents her from embracing her future. It convinces her that the best parts of her life are behind her, locked in doors she can never open again. The cruelty of the what-ifs is that they make her believe she had control all along. They whisper to her that she could have stopped this, that she could have changed everything, that she could have chosen differently and saved what was lost. And whether or not that is true doesn't matter. What matters is that she believes it. She believes that a softer word, a little more patience, a little more effort, a little more love could have rewritten the ending. And this belief weighs on her every single day, pressing into her heart like a stone she cannot lift. She carries it everywhere she goes, and no matter how much she distracts herself, no matter how much time passes, the what-ifs remain, reminding her of the life she could have lived and the love she can never reclaim. The realization of value does not arrive all at once. It creeps in slowly, like light seeping through the cracks of a dark room. At first, she may convince herself that life without you will be fine, that she can continue, that she doesn't need what she lost. But as the days turn into weeks and the weeks into months, she begins to see the truth. She begins to notice the emptiness in places where you once stood, the gaps in her life where your presence once filled the silence. What once felt ordinary suddenly feels extraordinary in hindsight. The way you remembered the little details, the way you listened even when she thought you weren't paying attention, the way you brought stability to her chaos. These things were once overlooked, but now they shine in her memory like treasures she can no longer touch. The value of your presence becomes clear only when your absence teaches her how rare you truly were. She starts to see it in the smallest moments. She notices how no one else checks in the way you did, how no one else notices when her tone shifts or when her smile doesn't quite reach her eyes. She realizes that the comfort she used to feel in your presence is not something she can find with just anyone. There was a safety with you, an unspoken trust, an invisible shield that made the world feel less harsh. Now that it's gone, every interaction feels different. Every relationship feels fragile. Every bond feels uncertain. It's only in losing you that she learns how much strength she drew from you, how much peace she found in simply knowing you were there. The realization of value also comes in the moments when life tests her. When she faces challenges, she remembers how you used to stand by her, not always with answers, but with unwavering support. She remembers how your presence alone was enough to calm storms in her mind. Now, when difficulties come, she looks around and finds no one who carries that same weight, no one who brings that same calm. It is in these moments of trial that she truly understands what she lost. Not just a person, but the stability, the grounding, the sense of belonging that only you gave. The things she once brushed aside as ordinary were the very things that held her together, and now without them, she feels the cracks widening within herself. This realization often strikes her when she sees others. She watches friends who still have their person, who still share those little inside jokes, who still have someone to lean on at the end of the day. She smiles for them, but inside she feels a sharp ache because she now understands that what they have is not something to take lightly. She thinks back to the times when you were there, how she sometimes dismissed the very qualities that now keep her awake at night. She realizes she had something countless people long for, a love that was patient, steady, forgiving, and real. And instead of cherishing it, she let it slip away, not fully realizing its worth until it was too late. Perhaps the most painful part of realizing value is understanding that it does not change anything. She can recognize your worth now. She can see clearly what you meant to her. She can cry over the space you left, but it does not bring you back. The realization makes the loss even sharper because knowing how valuable something was only after it's gone is like reopening the wound every single day. It is not just about losing you. It is about losing the version of herself who once had you. That realization follows her everywhere, turning ordinary days into reminders, turning memories into lessons she learned too late, and turning her heart into a constant echo of the truth she can no longer deny, that you were irreplaceable, and she only truly understood it when she no longer had you. The unspoken apology lives inside her like a constant echo, a quiet voice she cannot silence no matter how much she tries. It lingers in her heart, heavy and restless, because she knows there are words she should have said but never did. She carries it like a secret, yet it shows in her eyes, in the way her smile falters, in the way her laughter feels incomplete. This apology is not simple. It is layered, complex, built from all the moments where she realizes she could have been better, where she should have chosen differently, where she wishes she had given you more love instead of holding back. It isn't just one apology, it is 1,000 stitched together into a burden she cannot release. And because it remains unspoken, it grows heavier each day, pressing on her chest whenever she remembers you. She finds herself whispering those apologies into the quiet of the night when no one else can hear, when the only witness is the darkness that surrounds her. She apologizes for not listening when you tried to open your heart. She apologizes for taking your presence for granted, for assuming you would always be there no matter how she behaved. She apologizes for the harsh words she spoke in anger, the dismissive tone she used when she was too proud to be vulnerable, the times she chose silence instead of softness. Each memory brings with it a new apology, and though no one else can hear them, she knows they are real. She knows they are honest. She knows they come from the depth of her regret. The unspoken apology shows up in her daily life in ways even she doesn't always notice. When she sees someone else giving effort in a relationship, she thinks to herself, "I should have done that." When she hears a song about love and loss, she feels the words burning inside her as if they are her own confession. When she sees your name somewhere unexpectedly, her chest tightens, and in that split second, she silently whispers, "I'm sorry," as though the universe might carry it to you somehow. It is not just about the things she did wrong. It is also about the things she failed to do, the love she didn't show enough, the gratitude she didn't express enough, the warmth she didn't give enough, and those unsaid things now weigh more heavily than the mistakes themselves. She often wonders what it would feel like to actually say it to you, to stand in front of you and admit her faults, to tell you she sees everything clearly now, to tell you she would choose differently if given the chance. She imagines how her voice would tremble, how her eyes would fill with tears, how her words would spill out one after another, raw and unpolished, desperate to lighten the weight she carries. But that moment never comes. The apology remains trapped inside her because pride, distance, or simply the finality of what has happened keeps her silent. And so she walks through life carrying an invisible confession, one that only she knows, one that no one else can truly hear. Perhaps the most painful part of the unspoken apology is the knowledge that even if she said it now, it would not undo the past. It would not rewrite the story. It would not bring you back. It would not erase the pain that was caused. And yet, the heart still longs to say it because apologies are not only for the other person, they are also for the soul carrying them. She feels the words pressing against her chest like a storm begging to be released, but she keeps them inside, living every day with the silent awareness that you deserved to hear them, and she never gave you the chance. The unspoken apology becomes a shadow that follows her, a truth she cannot escape, a reminder that she will always live with the weight of words she should have said but never did.